Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of the Men of Steel podcast where we talk about Superman and Superman adjacent topics. If you enjoy this clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your shows.
Any medium of storytelling has its strengths, weaknesses, and its infrastructure just due to the nature of how it is made. And theater has string lights can be a diabolical machine. A green light can be kryptonite killing a superhero. You are already making leaps. One of my favorite plays is The 39 Steps because of that. So when you have the notion of creator and character and reader and layers upon interacting with what is the in-fiction medium, you can play with poking those holes. And I would love to revisit that someday. I would not want to revisit that character. It's not my character. But that notion of comic books and myth and superheroes and live theater, I think is worth going back to.
Superhero fiction, regardless if you consider it a genre or not, it's certainly a format of storytelling, and the fact that it has become so ubiquitously associated with comic books as a whole, where clearly it can bleed into anything else. Like, you can do Superman on an animated show or in a movie. Superman is the big reason why comic book became a big thing, and in the 60s, particularly post the Comics Code, it became the sort of default kind of format for storytelling. And it's interesting to put it in the spots that are harder to conceive of, even if it's ones that honestly you can make work pretty well, because there's way more suspension of disbelief when we're talking about a stage piece.
Right. There's already the idea of you can't CGI that. Of course we're going to see the wires. We are going to all say the wires aren't there. And there is a certain amount of suspension, pun intended, of disbelief there. You know, you got your Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. You've got your failed Superman musicals.
Yep.
And
at some point, we are going to talk about It's a Bird, It's a Plane, and Superman on here.
Good.
That is definitely happening.
I'm in.
We have had conversations about how we're going to do that episode, because it's also like a full musical. It's one that I want to do right. Listeners, please.
Oh, yeah. No, and I had a lot of fun thinking about superheroes and stagings and everything else for a while. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said this on the show. The theme for this podcast was for our college radio theater troupe, of which I was a founding member. And amongst the old horror scripts and things that we did, we also would do every show the next script of a Superman radio serial. I was first in there as sort of the music director. It was just me and a little electric organ playing diminished 7 chords over things and just doing what have you. And a lot of it was just kind of improvisation. And the faculty director of the theater troupe, he was like, I want you to compose a Superman theme. And we talked about it a little bit, and 80% of what the Men of Steel podcast theme is what immediately fell out of me. And that was composed as a Superman radio serial that I'm very happy it has a home here, because I always wanted it to go somewhere. And this is just what it meant to be. But a lot of what you could get away with Superman in terms of a audio-only medium versus something in theater where there are limitations, but there's also accepted limitations. I mean, kryptonite was created for the radio serial, if I'm not mistaken. It was a way to give the actor for Superman a bit of a vacation. And the green kryptonite renders Superman completely powerless. You can get effort sounds. And cool, Superman can...
Passed out for a couple months if you need.
He could be out for the week. That's sort of a thing. And so it's interesting what gets developed and what comes from that.
Yeah, I mean, we love the radio show here. It's been a while since we talked about it, but
It has been.
we did for quite a bit early in the show history, and we are someday going to come back to it because we had gotten very close to the Atom Man story arc.
We did Batman's Big Mystery.
That we did do that one recently.
Yeah.
God, it was fun.
But we'll come back to it at some point and talk more about that. But yeah, the audio format is so fun for doing these kind of stories because, again, suspension of disbelief, you're like really here for it because you can do just sound effects and you're golden.
You have your live Foley and you can have some fun with it. And I mean, there again, kind of bringing it back to this current version of the monologue that you wrote that we featured here on this episode. It is theater and it is radio theater.
Yeah. Remember, if you like the clip, after you're done liking and subscribing, check out certainpov.com where you can find more episodes of the show as well as a ton of other great shows.